Master Maker, we focus on specialty findings, clasps, focals, and of course beads, and I show you all of the really cool ways that you can use those to become a master maker. I have a great show for you guys today. I am super excited to show you some really cool ways to kind of extend your beads. And I mean that in the sense of, like, if you've got one strand of something, you only have a few of those in that one strand and you really want to get the most out of that strand. I've got some really cool ways to show you how to do that with some really cool items. So let's do the housekeeping before we get started with all of the goodies. Hello to Wendy. Hi, Kim. Hi, Julie. Nicole, it is so good to see you guys. All right, let's talk about the housekeeping, shall we? Guys, first and foremost, at any point during today's show, if you would like to hit that shop button at the bottom of the screen, you can pull up all of the information about the items that are in today's show. You can get all of the specifications, all of the information that you need, including the price and all of that, and you can add those items to your cart and check out, all while still watching the show. You're not going to leave me. You're going to stay right here. I'm just going to get really small, and you're going to be able to do all of that shopping and not miss a single bit of the show, which is fantastic, right? However, should you have to miss some of the show, if you've got to go away, life pulls you away, sometimes things interrupt us, or if you have ordered your product and it's taken a day or two to get to you and you've forgotten and you want to come back and rewatch the show, you can do just that by watching us as a video on demand. So super cool, easy things to use here. I do love the feature that you can shop without navigating away from the page, because sometimes that does happen and then you can't find your way back and you've missed part of the project, and that's a whole thing. And so JTV Extra makes it really easy so that you don't have to worry about any of those things, which is great. If you would like to, guys, please hit those heart buttons to show how much you love us, right? If you see a technique or a product, or you just like what's going on, hit that heart button and share the love. And speaking of sharing, if you do not mind, it would be wonderful if you would like to share us to your social media. Anywhere you are able to share videos like this, whether you're part of Facebook groups or something similar where you can share this kind of video, or if you just want to post it on your own social media feed, we would greatly appreciate it. We just need to get our little feelers on all of the other makers that are out there and bring them into our amazing community that is growing very rapidly, might I add. I am always happy to see new faces in the crowd, and of course very comforted to see some familiar faces as well. So if you don't mind to share this, we would really appreciate it. There are still makers out there who don't know about JTV Extra, don't know about Jewel School, don't know about JTV. We want to bring those people in and show them what an amazing community that we do have. And we want them to watch not just Master Maker here with me, but to also check out, and you as well, all of the other amazing creators that are here streaming on JTV Extra. So be sure you check out the schedule for sure. Don't want to miss anything. All right, so that is it for the housekeeping. We are going to get right into the show. I do want to take just a second to welcome you in again, because we have some new faces making their way in. Hello, Holly. Hi, Janelda. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Leah. It is so good to see you. So you're in for a treat today because I've got sparkle. I love sparkle. You guys know I'm the sparkle queen. But I have a really cool selection of items for you guys. Just like always, I'm going to start out with the beads, and then I'm going to show you some of the components, and then we're going to put together a project using a combination of those things. So I'm going to get you turned around, and we're going to start talking about beads. All right, so I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I've got a couple of different ways, a couple of different things in the show today that are going to help you extend the life of your, not necessarily the life, I hate putting it that way, but it's going to extend the amount of beads that you have. If you've got some beads where you only have a few in a strand and you really want to try to get the most out of that strand, I've got some things that I think are really going to help you in that regard. First and foremost, we're going to start out with a parcel of assorted shapes and sizes in neutral colors. These are acrylic beads. And guys, don't snub your nose at acrylic beads, because acrylic has been everywhere for the past couple of seasons. Acrylic beads are really kind of growing, particularly in this day and age where things cost so much money. And sometimes it is very expensive to be in the jewelry making hobby or business, right? And so we're always looking for ways that we can save our money. This is going to be one of the coolest ways to do that, right? Because acrylic beads are 100% affordable. They're also beautiful. They don't have to be plastic, you know, just like gumball machine beads. These are gorgeous. They have so much going on. There are tons of shapes. There are tons of designs, and these are going to be a great way to, number one, save weight, right? I'm talking about the overall weight of your piece. Acrylic beads are lightweight and they're super versatile. A lot of the ones in this parcel have a very large hole, so you're going to be able to add these to various sizes of stringing materials, which is wonderful. But this is like a grown-up acrylic bead, right? There's a lot to look at here. We have some very whimsical beads here. There are some butterflies in here. There are some stars in here. There's some little fish if you're feeling like putting together a fishy little piece, which would be super cool. But then there are some others that are just absolutely beautiful. Like I said, this is a very grown-up version of the acrylic bead. This is a beautiful focal bead that could be used in a ton of different ways. And because these are cost effective, you're going to be able to really kind of pop these in between your gemstones or your favorite crystal beads and space those out so that you're only using a fraction of your more expensive beads mixed in with these. And these have so much personality, so much personality. These are really, really cool. I'm telling you, acrylics are everywhere. And I've seen a lot of acrylics over the past, like I said, 2 seasons, and they've been very bright and colorful. And I do think there's a time and a place for the bright and colorful. I don't want to act like that's not also appropriate and in style, because it is. But I love that we're kind of transitioning into fall and to winter right now. We're in that kind of weird in-between phase, at least here in the South. And the colors here, this neutral palette is really going to be perfect for your fall pieces. And again, they're lightweight, so you're getting a ton of beads here. I don't even know how many beads. All I know is that this is a big old parcel. There's a ton here in assorted shapes and sizes. In this neutral color, it's about 1 pound. That's a lot, and you're not even getting to see all of them. This is filling up the entire tray. We're still going. It's filling up the entire tray. And it's a ton. It's a ton. People are mixing their acrylics with their pearls, their freshwater pearls, their expensive crystals and things like that, and really getting some amazing pieces of jewelry. So I definitely think acrylic has come a long, long way, and this is definitely a cool buy. All right, so I'm going to sit these over to the side. We're not stopping. We're going to keep on going. Now, if you're looking for some more amazing beads to take you into the fall, I have... excuse my little baggie. I have yellow tiger's eye faceted beads. This is about a 14 to 15 inch strand. You guys know how I feel about tiger eye. It's one of my favorites. It's such a beautiful bead. This one is going to be a great bead that's going to get you not just through fall and winter, but through the entire year. Tiger eye is always a classic. You can mix this with so many different colors. I personally love it mixed with just plain old black, but you can mix this with oranges and reds and purples and other neutrals. You can mix this with grays, you can mix it with white, and it makes quite a statement. These are a fancy cut bead, fancy shape, if you will. I don't know the exact cut on those, but I do know that it has those large facets on there that really catches the light. They're absolutely beautiful. Again, this is a 14 to 15 inch strand, and these are some pretty sizable beads here. They are 10 by 8 to 12 by 10 millimeters. So this is a big bead. You're going to be able to use maybe each one of these as a focal, or just 2 for maybe some earrings if you wanted to, and you're going to be able to really extend the use of these by mixing in some of the other amazing things that I have in today's show. I've got some spacer beads that I think are going to look beautiful with this tiger eye strand, so I'm going to bring this back out here in just a few minutes just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. But I do have this in the show. All right, that's not all. I've got crystals. I told you I had sparkle, and I was not lying about that. I have Chinese crystal glass strands. These are 6mm strands. This is a set of 6 in 6 different colors. We've got this gorgeous blue. We have a beautiful green. We also have this really nice kind of yellow. It's not an in-your-face yellow, though. This is like a very, this is just a classy kind of yellow, right? It's a soft yellow that's going to work with a lot of different things. We have my favorite color, which is this kind of magma. It's like this orange, red, pinky mix. One of my absolute favorite colors in beads. Hands down. You guys know I'm obsessed with this color. So anytime I get to share this with you, it is super exciting. I have a really beautiful kind of bronze brassy color that's going to make a great neutral. This would look amazing, by the way, with that tiger eye as well. How pretty would that be? Ooh, I love that, right? And then last but not least, I have a beautiful purple strand, and you can't go wrong with purple, particularly this time of year. It is almost spooky season, and I know a lot of you that put together some really great Halloween designs for your craft fairs and your booths and your websites. Making some really cool Halloween designs using purple is a great way for those customers of yours that don't necessarily like to wear orange. Purple is a fantastic alternative because it falls into that category of Halloween colors, right? So more people definitely will be, I think, drawn to that purple than they would like pumpkin orange. But I mean, it's always nice to have a selection of both, for sure. I just love to add purple into my spooky season designs. All right, so I've got tons of sparkle here. Like I said, Chinese crystals. These strands are 16 to 17 inches long, and there are 6 strands here. And they are 6mm faceted rondelles. And we've talked a bunch about how that 6mm is a perfect size. It's that wonderful kind of sweet spot in bead size, right? Because it can either stand alone and be the big bead in your design, or it can serve as a fantastic spacer bead between some larger beads. It really helps to create balance in your designs. 6mm, you can't go wrong with that size. There are so many things you can do with it. It's not too big to use in earrings or rings, and it's the perfect size for necklaces and bracelets. So faceted or not, I do love a good 6mm bead, and I would like to extend the amount of these. Now I'm saying 16 to 17 inch strands, that's a long strand. I don't want you to misunderstand that. First of all, this strand that I'm showing you here that is a double is actually looped around. That is a long strand of beads, right? There are 2 of them that I have in my hands here that are looped around, and then the other 4 are just straight strands. 16 to 17 inches, that's a pretty long strand. A lot of times I'll show you a 15-inch strand of beads. This is a little bit longer than those regular strands that I show you. However, I still want to be able to stretch these out as much as possible, right? I mean, I want to do that with my crystals. I want to be able to do it with my tiger eye, and I could mix in some of those amazing acrylic beads like I showed you, or I could mix in some spacer beads, and I just so happen to have some really cool spacer beads in today's show. I've got some metal round spacer beads. These are approximately 5 by 5mm in gold tone. These have a 1mm hole, and there are 200 pieces total. That 1mm hole is going to fit some of your smaller leathers. So if you've got a 0.5mm leather, it's going to be able to fit through this. You're also going to be able to use some other things. That 1mm hole is going to accommodate quite a few different stringing material sizes for sure. These are really, really beautiful. They have such a really pretty design on them. That's a lot. 200 pieces, that's going to really help make your crystals last longer, right? Because if you pop one of these, just one, in between your crystal beads, let's see, what would be pretty here? Some green with this gold would be gorgeous for the upcoming holidays. I think that would be absolutely beautiful. Or maybe a couple, right? 2 or 3 in between one of these pops of green would be a great way to really get the most bang for your buck out of your crystals, your gemstones, and your other favorite bead strands for sure. I do, though, think that these gold spacer beads will look amazing with the tiger eye. A tiger eye is just so versatile. You can mix it with the gold color. You can mix it with copper and it looks incredible. You can mix it with your silver. I've seen some really interesting pieces where people have mixed this with rose gold. Really, really cool, but I am always kind of drawn to the warmth of a gold color mixed with the yellow tiger eye. I just feel like it makes such a classic combination. So don't forget about the bead strands when you're checking out these really cool spacers. All right, so if gold color might not be your thing, or maybe you want to add something else to your gold spacers, I've got some silver ones that are really cool. This is probably my favorite item in the show today. These are silver tone metal tube beads shaped spacers, and these come in 4 different sizes. There's 80 beads total. Now I know just looking at it here you can't really tell what's going on here, but let me show you the different sizes here. So we've got one that looks to be like 5 beads, right? It's a tube shaped bead. It's all one bead, but it looks like 5 metal beads all spaced together, right? So there's a 5 one, there's one that is 4, there's one that's 3, and there is one that is 2. Except I picked up another 3. There we go. So you can see we have the 5, the 4, the 3, and the 2. So you've got the 4 different sizes here. There are 80 pieces. That's going to last you a really long time. That's a lot of beads to work with. And it looks like more beads than it actually is because each one of them looks like more than just one bead, which is super cool. But you're going to be able to mix these in just like those gold beads. You're going to be able to really kind of lengthen out your strands, lengthen out your favorite, bundles of beads by popping these little spacers in between there. If you just need a couple, then use some of the smaller ones. Or if you want to make a really cool statement, add a spacer that looks like 5 little metal beads in between there. Or if you want to get really creative, mix them together, right? You can totally mix these with each other. There is nothing wrong with mixed metals. Mixed metals is one of the things about jewelry that makes me really excited and happy because it's like taking your old favorites and giving them new life when you mix them together, right? If you are always a silver person, or you're always a gold colored person, or you are always wearing copper, try mixing it with something different. Try some of the exact same designs that you've always been doing, but mix your metals together and you're going to get a totally different look, which is always what we're looking for, right? We're always looking for ways to re-inspire ourselves and get re-excited about our hobby. That way we don't get creative burnout, and that way we don't get bored. Mixing your metals is a great way to kind of refresh your ideas. So I definitely recommend, just in my opinion, I'd have to have both because I like to use a little bit of both. I think it's a lot of fun. I do want to mention though that any of these spacer beads are going to look amazing all by themselves. I'm calling them spacer beads, but quite honestly, they are a bead all in themselves, right? It is a beautiful bead all by itself if you wanted to use it as the main bead. Take a couple of these, put them onto a head pin, add an ear wire, and you've got a beautiful but simple pair of earrings that you're really going to be able to get a lot of use out of because there's no color involved, right? Take a couple of the longer spacers here, same thing. Put a drop, maybe 1 bead, right? Let's just imagine for just a second. 1 bead and an ear wire and you're done. You've added a little pop of color, or don't, right? Add an ear wire and call it done. You've got a really easy to wear metal piece of jewelry. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nobody says you have to include color in your designs. You don't have to. I love to make just plain chain designs and metal designs on their own. So if maybe you're not feeling the beads, or maybe you want to just kind of step out of your comfort zone, there's nothing wrong with doing metal pieces that don't have any color at all. All right, so let's put something together. So I thought it would be fun to use some of these beads, the silver ones, to put together kind of an interesting, I don't know how to explain this necklace. I'm going to show you the the sample here in just a second. I don't necessarily want to call this a statement piece because compared to some of the larger pieces of jewelry that I have made and that you and I have made together here on Master Maker, this is definitely more of an understated design, but still just as beautiful. And the cool part about the design that I'm going to show you is that you can use literally any of the beads in today's show to create a beautiful look. I, of course, am going with the magma color because that's my favorite. I cannot get over the color of this bead. It's red, it's orange, it's pink, it's peach, it's all of those in one. It's just a spectacular color for me. So this is going to be the color that I choose. However, if you are feeling a different one of these beautiful strands or the tiger eye, you're going to be able to create this design today. Ooh, or you could use some of the acrylics as well. You're going to be able to pick any color and create a really cool piece of jewelry. So let me show you what that is, and we're going to get right into the project. This is a pretty easy piece to put together, but we are going to talk about simple loops. We've had simple loops on our mind for a few shows now, and I get this question very often about simple loops, and today we're going to talk about the answer to it. So this is the front of the necklace that we're going to be creating today. So we're going to put all of this together. This is the sample. So this is exactly what we're going to do. But I want to point out something that is kind of one of those age-old questions when it comes to loops, and that is, what direction do I make my simple loops? We're going to talk about why that matters in this project. Okay, so we are going to start by making all of our simple loops. We're going to do some wrapped loops, and then we're going to start assembling this. And as we assemble, I'm going to show you exactly why it is that the loops and the direction of those loops are going to make a big difference in the way that this piece hangs. Okay, so I'm going to set this to the side, and we are going to start working. I'm just going to put it up here at the top so I can still see it. We're going to start working on those simple loops. So you may have noticed that the top part of this design was just a straight across section of the it's the little 5 bead looking spacers with jump rings in between them. Okay, and there are, I believe, 11 across. So we're going to go straight across with 11 of these, and 9 of those have already been done for us. We're going to do the simple loops on these. This is going to be where, well, in every part of this design today, it's going to be really important that you pay attention to where your loops are going. And let's talk about that as we do our simple loops. So I will be completely honest with you. Most of the time when I am creating simple loops, I will make my loops going in the exact same direction. Okay, meaning, let me make one for you so you can see what I'm talking about. I will make my loop on the top face the same direction as my loop on the bottom, right? Instead of being opposites, 9 times out of 10, just my kind of default jewelry making setting is to make all my loops face the same direction. However, I know that some of you, your default setting is to make them go in opposite directions. It really is kind of depending on the piece. It is most definitely situational as to when and where that needs to be changed one way or the other. Okay, going across the top here, each one of the loops that we have, whether it is the loop that was already on the eye pin or the loop that we have created, they all need to be front facing. They need to be facing towards us. That is so that when we put a jump ring between them, I'm sorry, they don't need to be facing towards us. They need to be facing away from us. They are facing towards us as they're laying down. But that is so that when we put the jump ring in between them, the jump ring is what is going to be facing towards us. This is really important because of the way that we need things to hang, coming from this point going downwards. Okay, so each one of these loops going across the top, they all need to go in the same direction. So as I am making that loop, I'm going to grab that wire right where it is exiting the bead, and I'm going to create it going the exact same way as the one that's already there. I'm going to bend it over the top of my pliers, or over the top of the bead rather. I'm going to come in with my cutter tool, and I'm going to trim off, leaving myself about 1/4 of an inch of wire. That's about all you need to create a loop that's going to be very similar to the loop that is already on your eye pin. All right, I'm going to grab the tail of that wire with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to rock back. Remember, we talked about this on Monday's show about creating those simple loops and how I like to rock them back to close them up. Whatever works for you, but notice that I made both of these loops going in the same direction. So as I'm holding it and looking at it, they're both facing towards me. When we're attaching them to our jump rings, they're both going to be facing away from us. Okay, you want to do that to all of the ones that are going to go across the top row. So we need to do one more together. All right. So we're going to take one of these beads, we're going to thread it on to another eye pin. Eye pin is a little crooked. Okay, we're going to come in with our chain nose pliers, and we're bending the wire right where it exits the bead. Since it's a simple loop, we don't need to fold it over or bend it over, rather the top of the pliers. We're going to come in with our cutter tool, trim off, leaving yourself about 1/4 of an inch of wire, and use those round nose pliers to grab that wire and roll back towards the beads, towards your hand, towards your body, however you want to look at it. Okay, so that you've got a loop on both sides that are facing the same direction. Okay, that is super important for this top row. And we're actually going to go ahead and attach these with jump rings. And then we're going to reopen these jump rings, which I normally don't do, but I find that teaching this project in particular, it's a little bit easier to explain the reasoning behind the loops if we'll go ahead and do this. Just know that we will be opening these jump rings again. As a general rule, I try not to open and close my jump rings more than I need to. So if I can get away with only opening and closing them one time, that's what I'll do. Just because the more you twist that metal, the weaker it's going to become. You don't want to break your jump rings. Even the most amazing jump rings on the planet will get weak the more you open and close them. However, for this project in particular, like I mentioned, I am going to create this chain, but then reopen these jump rings. Do not do it yourself in this order, right? Because you don't necessarily want to reopen those jump rings. But for us, we're going to, because it's important in our lesson about the direction of our loops. All right, so all I'm going to do is just take a jump ring between 2 pairs of pliers, just like always, and twist to open that up. And I'm just going to create a little beaded chain out of all of these spacer beads. Now the spacer beads that I'm using for this top row are the ones that look like 5 little beads all together. Colleen says, that's a perfect loop, and she gives the kiss. I don't know about perfect. My simple loops, I struggle just as much as you guys do. I'm telling you, I don't think anybody makes a perfect simple loop every single time. And if they tell you that they are, I think they're telling a fib for sure. But I try, and sometimes I get really lucky and get really nice ones. That's for sure. All right, so we're just going to keep going. Again, we're creating just a chain across the top, and this is going to be kind of our base for the rest of this design. So all this is just those spacer beads. And quite honestly, you can do this entire design without adding any beads at all. Or if you wanted to add even more color to this, you could, everywhere I'm putting a jump ring, you could actually put one of those beautiful crystals instead of a jump ring, right? Instead of, or in addition to, because you are going to have to use this jump ring for some other things. However, you can definitely find ways to incorporate beads into this top row if you want to. All right, just moving right along. We've got 4 more to attach. And honestly, these spacer beads with just the jump rings in between them would make amazing chain. If you were making a multi-strand design and say you needed a nice metal chain to go in between a couple of drapes of colored beads, this will be a beautiful drape to add to something, or a beautiful bracelet or a necklace all by itself. Just pop a pendant on there and call it a day, right? It can be a really beautiful piece. So spacer beads, I know why they are called spacer beads, but let's be honest, they're still just beads, and they're beautiful, and they can be used just the same way any of your beautiful colored beads can be used. Okay, so we are to the end of our little beaded chain here. Just want to take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It is important that no matter how long you make this design, that you do have an odd number of your bead sections on the top row. Okay. All right. So now that we have the top row, and if you will, we're going to refer to our sample here. You can see our top row going all the way across. I'm going to use the 4 bead sections to create our triangles. Now I know in my sample I've used a mixture of the 5 beads and the 4 beads. I'm going to stick with all 4 beads for the one that we're doing today. It doesn't really change the look very much. But what I want you to know is now we're going to change things up a little bit. We are going to create simple loops again with our spacer beads, the 4 bead spacer beads on eye pins. This time, we need those loops to be facing in opposite directions. It's really, really important that they face in opposite directions. And I'm going to show you, just in case you don't believe me, I'm going to give you an example. We're actually going to do one together really quickly that has them all going in the same direction, and you're going to see kind of what the frustration is with this and why one simple little change in this can make all the difference in the world. So let's make one that we're not going to use. I'm going to use the 5 spacers for our example. So let me move all of this out of the way for just a second so that we can really kind of focus on the what not to do. Which I think is kind of funny because we're always talking about what you should do and we kind of overlook the what you shouldn't do. I'm going to show you what you shouldn't do and why you shouldn't do it, just to kind of drive home the point here. All right, so I'm going to take 3 of these just very, very quickly, put some loops on them. Again, we're not going to use these. This is just our example of how to not make this work, okay? Ms. T says, don't care for wonky. Me neither. I don't want my things to hang all wonky. And they definitely will hang wonky if you do not pay attention to your loops in this design, which you would think wouldn't be an issue, but oddly enough makes a humongous difference. So let me show you exactly why that is. Maybe not necessarily why, but what you're going to be fighting against if you make all your loops go the same direction. Okay, so let's imagine this one right here is on our top row, right? So we're going to go ahead and put 2 jump rings on it because it does in the top row have jump rings on either side. So we're going to do that really quickly. So there's a jump ring, and we're going to go ahead and put one of our spacer beads on there, okay, to create the the right side of our triangle. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to take our jump ring, open that up. That's the jump ring that's in the top row, but we're going to reopen it in the top row to add in our little pieces to create our little triangles. Okay, all of this is looking good, right? Looks like it works at the moment. Everything's laying out nicely. But I want you to take a really good look at the way the loops down here on the bottoms are facing. These 2 loops are going to be fighting over each other if they are all going in the same direction. So let me show you what ends up happening. Now this might not be the best visual representation of this, but I'm trying very hard to show you exactly what ends up happening here. If all of your loops are going in the same direction, okay, if you hang it this way, that's all well and good. But if you hang it in the direction that we actually are going to use it in our piece, grabbing these 2 jump rings. This is where I most definitely wish I had a third hand. Look at how the jump ring on the bottom is hanging. Do you see how? Okay, so if I push it, I can make it lay flat if I push it. However, see how it's hanging just like that? That is not going to be a great way to get something to hang from it. For whatever reason, I can push it into the right spot, but as gravity takes over, it will not lay nice and flat up against your body. And that's because the loops on either side of your beaded section here are causing the way that those loops hold onto that jump ring to kind of flip the jump ring either to the front or to the back. But it's not enough to make it lay flat. It's just the slightest change that's going to make all the difference in the world. So if you will, instead of making your loops go in the same directions for the 2 sides that are going to cause or create your triangle, if you'll do 1 loop going one direction and 1 loop going the other direction, it's going to lay absolutely perfectly when you have it on. And you can even tell when I lay it on the bead mat how flat it is, and it's all because those loops are going in opposite directions. Now again, I know that wasn't the best visual representation of it, but it's better for me to show it to you and explain it to you than let you go and try to create this design yourself and not be able to figure out why it is that those jump rings won't lay correctly. It has everything to do with the loops. I promise you. And it's one of those things that maybe beginners might forget to think about. So it really does make a huge difference. So as we are creating the loops with our 4 bead spacers here, we want to be sure that all of these are going in opposite directions. Now, these are not. Okay, they're not going in opposite directions, but that's okay. Let's say you are putting all these together and you are like me, you get to the end and you realize, wow, they're not going in opposite directions. You don't have to redo them. You can very easily take them between 2 pairs of pliers and twist one of them. So now you've got one going in one direction and one going in the opposite direction. Okay, and I'm going to do that to each one of these where I just want to twist one. Okay, and then I'm going to sit those to the side and we're going to do a couple of them together. Janelda says, I learn something new every day. That's my goal. That's my goal. I mean, because this is not a particularly difficult piece of jewelry to put together, but it can be a frustrating one if you don't realize that the direction that these loops are going is going to really kind of make or break the way that this all hangs once you get it put together. And it's funny because it's such a simple little thing, but it really does make a huge difference in the overall way that this piece is going to come together, and whether or not you're going to be frustrated with it or you're going to be satisfied with it. So all of these that I did incorrectly, we have just fixed with a slight little movement of the pliers, and then we're going to do 2 together, doing them the correct way. Aunt T says, thank you for this explanation. I have such an issue with this happening. It's funny because most of the time it doesn't make a huge difference. But when it does make a difference, it is a huge frustration because a lot of times when we go to troubleshoot a design, we don't think about things like the directions of the loops, right? We're looking at other things. We're like, well, maybe the jump rings are not the right size, or maybe the beads are not heavy enough, or this or that or the other. And sometimes it's as simple as we need to just kind of rethink the directions of our loops. So again, to do these the correct way for the triangles, the loop is facing towards us, so the one that we create, we're going to make so that it is facing in the opposite direction. So bending the wire is just coming over the top of the bead, cut off, come in with our round nose pliers, and roll back. Okay, so we have loops going in opposite directions. All right, let's do one more. All right, so now we have all of these that are going the way that we want them to go. Now we are going to reopen these jump rings up here at the top, like I told you not to do. This is definitely a do as I say, not as I do kind of situation, but that's okay. All right, so on our sample piece, I just want to refer back to this one. You'll notice that our beaded chain across the top, our base chain up here, you come in 3 before you start the pattern, okay? So, oh, we might want to go ahead and do these little wrapped guys too. You want to do 2 of those real quick, and then we'll do these together at the, well, we may as well just go ahead and do all of them. Just for the sake of not opening our jump rings any more than we need to. This little guy's gotten flipped around. Let's go ahead and do our wrapped loops too, so that we can just assemble all of this together. I think that'll make things go a little bit more smoothly. So just for the sake of opening and closing our jump rings again, you're going to need a total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the crystals, right? And I've done 5 of these. Sue says, there's so much to remember, it makes my head hurt. But you know what? Listen, you can always come back and watch it as a video on demand. You don't have to remember it all at the same time. You don't. You can fast forward and be like, oh, I remember that part. Oh, I remember that, right? So hopefully that makes things a little bit easier for you. I never want these classes to feel like you need to be sitting back and taking notes. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a little too much school for me, so... I want you to be able to come back and watch this as many times as you want to, instead of having to commit it all to memory right now. All right, so we're gonna do 2 of these with some wrapped loops, and then we'll just attach these as we go so that we don't have to reopen our jump rings. All right, so I'm gonna do wrapped loops on these, but feel free to do simple loops if you want to. I'm gonna take my chain nose pliers, grabbing the wire right where it is exiting the bead, and I'm going to bend the wire over the top of those pliers. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, grabbing the wire. I'm going to take it up and over the top barrel of the pliers, rotate those pliers in my hand so that I have room to take that wire over to the other side, and then we're going to wire wrap in that space between that loop and the top of the bead. Just be careful. Don't try to do more wire wraps than you can actually fit in there, because you don't want to risk cracking your bead. All right, so you get your wire wraps in there. You're going to come in with your cutter tool and you're going to trim off. You want to get as close as you can, and if you need to come in with your pliers to tuck in your little tail for your wire, do that. Okay, we're going to do 1 more, but you're going to have, again, a total of 7 of these. Now, if you want to get extra and make even more dangles and beautiful crystals hanging from this, you absolutely can. I'm just giving you the inspiration. You can take it and do with whatever you want with it. Pauline says, no writing and surely no school for me. I do not blame you. Do not blame you. That's why we like to keep our techniques and things pretty simple here on Master Maker for our Friday shows, because just like my Feel Good Friday shows on my personal, for my personal business, I don't want you to go into the weekend being bogged down, right, by some new technique that you got to learn all and practice. I want you to go into your weekend feeling inspired and excited about jewelry that you can make that is beautiful but doesn't require a ton of other techniques and skills. Say it once, say it again. Beautiful jewelry does not have to be a representation of every skill or technique you have ever learned. You don't need to cram those all into a beautiful piece of jewelry, right? Okay, so we have our little drops. Those are ready to go. We're just going to add those as we go. There is 1 little drop right here in the front that I forgot to do. We're going to do that one together right now. It is a 2 bead spacer, and this one, if you'll notice, the loops are going both in the same direction. This, quite honestly, is one of those times where it doesn't really matter. It's funny how jewelry is like that. Depending on the design, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to make these 2 loops go in the same direction, and I'm just doing a simple loop here. And then I am going to go ahead, just for the sake of time, I'm going to twist to open that, and I'm going to thread one of these on. This one will be ready to go. We'll know this one is going to go in the middle. Okay, so let's get to work. Okay, so coming in 3 from the end. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. We're going to start our pattern for our triangles right here. So I'm going to just lay them out. Okay. And as I open this jump ring right here, this one, I'm going to have to add the left side of my triangle for this triangle and go ahead and pre-add the right side of the next triangle. Okay. So I'm going to come over here to this jump ring, and this one is on the edge, so I do not have to add more than one of these, but I'm going to open this up and I'm going to thread on 2 of these. Okay, close that back. And when you lay this out flat, that's what you've got so far. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I most definitely put those in in the wrong place. My goodness. Okay. Can we try this again? Let's do it correctly this time. Okay. 1, 2, 3 from the end. It's this jump ring. This jump ring, it is only getting a single one of those drops. I was getting a little excited about putting this together and not even paying attention to what I was doing. Okay, single on that one. So that is going to be one of the sides of our first triangle on the edge. Okay, we're going to open up this jump ring and we're going to attach 2. I'm glad I laid that down instead of just going right with the flow there. I would have messed the whole thing up. All right, so there's 1, there's 2. And really a good way to do this is to try to keep this flat on your bead mat. The alternative would be to go ahead and hang this onto a bust so that you can really kind of watch as you're going your steps. But since that's not possible to do here as we are doing this together, we're going to do our best to keep this laying flat. Okay, so now I'm going to add a jump ring here and we're going to add a drop, and that's going to create our first triangle. So I'm going to pick up the drop and then I'm going to grab the loops on the ends of either side of those little spacers and again lay us out flat so that we can see what we've got going on. Okay, so this is going to be the right side of our next triangle. As we open this jump ring, just like the previous one, we're going to add this one because that's going to be the left side of that triangle, and then this one, which is going to be the right side of the next triangle. Okay, so I'm going to come in with my pliers, making sure that I'm also opening the jump ring all on the same side, because you don't want your triangles one on one side and one on the other side. It's definitely not going to hang nicely if you do that. So again, that's another really good reason to do this laying flat on the mat if you can't have this hanging up. All right, so there are our 2. Okay, we're going to come in with a jump ring to connect these 2 together and add our drop. I goof up all the time. Sue says it does give you hope when you see the pros goof up. Listen, I goof all the time, all the time. That's just part of it, you know? All right, so I'm hooking to this one and then I'm going to hook to this one and close that back, and then again kind of relay everything out here nice and flat. Okay, so now we have made it to the middle, and I actually left out a crystal that goes right here on the edge. I'll put it there on the at the very end when we do the one on the other side. So I'm just going to sit this to the side just as a little reminder to myself that we left that one out. But now we're in the middle here, and the middle is the one that has, where did our little baby drop go? There it is. This one's going to have our little baby drop. So this will make our middle hang just a little bit lower, as you can see up here. Just hangs a little bit lower to really kind of accentuate the front of this piece. So again, with the jump ring, I'm going to attach 2, and then we will attach our drop in the middle. So I'm going to come in with my pliers, roll the jumping ring around until you get that opening right there on the same side as the others. Okay. Open that up. Put our 2 little spacers. Twist to close that back. Make sure you get a good closure on that. And then we're going to bring in another jump ring. And with this jump ring, this little guy, and it's going to attach here and to this one. And we're going to close that back. Pick it up and lay it back down so you can see. All right, we're going to do 2 more triangles. And then we're going to just add our length to this, which is just going to be some more chain, and our design will be finished. So, all right, making our way. Next jump ring, slide it around so that the opening is facing downwards. Okay, open that up. 1 here. 1 here, twist to close that back. Okay, take a jump ring to connect these 2 with another crystal. Oh, thank you, Gina. Gina says, that's why I love her. I feel absolutely comfortable and not embarrassed by any lack of knowledge I may have. Here to learn in a stress-free setting. And that's exactly what I want. I want you guys to feel like when you come to me to hang out and let me be a part of your beady journey, part of your day, that it's like you are beading with a friend. That's exactly how I want it to feel. I don't pretend to be an expert on anything. I mess up just like everybody else does. And I'll be the first to admit it that I make huge messes. But I want you to be comfortable here. I want you to be comfortable, and I want you to know that everybody has to start somewhere, and that even if you've been doing this for 20 years, you can make major mistakes and they're all learning opportunities. So we're in this together, 100%. Okay, so we're at the end here where this is our last triangle. So for this jump ring, we only need to add 1, right? And that's going to finish off the edge triangle that we have here. I am also, when I have this jump ring open, going to add the little drop that goes there as well, the one that I forgot on the other side. And then we'll go back to the other side to add the other one. But as far as our little beaded sections go, this one only needs 1 of those with our little spacers. So I'm going to twist this jump ring around till I can find the opening, open that up. I'm going to thread on my crystal and then my spacer bead, and I'm going to close that back. And I'm going to bring these 2 together with the jump ring. And connect both of these. Whoops. Close that back just like so. Okay, so we have all of that. And you can really see this top row, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of the loops in the top row are all facing the same direction. And with those jump rings between them, they're facing away from us. That makes a huge difference. The ones to create the triangles, those need to be facing in opposite directions. One facing towards you, one facing away from you. That is going to be the key to keeping the next set of jump rings that you add facing the correct direction and not fighting against these little loops, and therefore not hanging flat. It's a real problem as to what the overall piece looks like. So definitely be mindful of that, and remember that it's always situational. It really kind of depends on the project as to whether or not that is going to be an issue. But when you are troubleshooting designs, don't forget that that can always be a reason why something is not quite working out the way that you want it to. Just a simple little change in the direction of some loops can make a huge difference in the overall piece. So, all right, there we go. We have the entire center of our necklace completed. We're just going to add some chain. I've got some pre-cut chain here. I've got my clasp on the back here, so I'm just going to attach either end to the ends of the piece that we created. And I just want to remind everybody that you absolutely can do this with the gold spacers. Just because these look like they're 5 beads doesn't mean that you couldn't take those beautiful gold spacers in the show and actually do 5 of them on one. They might be a little bit bigger, right? But you can still achieve the same results in a gold color with a different bead. You can also add crystals in here if you wanted to add more drops. There is always room on the jump rings for more if you wanted to add more dangles and more crystals. You can really get an intricate piece here with lots of extras. But for the sake of today's show, I just wanted to keep it a little bit more simple than what we've been doing. We do have a tendency to make some really grand statement pieces here, but I think this one, because we're really focusing on those loops, and that was kind of the issue with the piece and the major education talking point of this, I wanted to keep it as soft and as simple as possible. This is 100% a wearable piece, whereas sometimes the statement pieces I make, you kind of have to, bring them down a little bit to wear every day. This is definitely a piece I would wear every single day. All right, I'm going to turn you around. And I'm going to grab a necklace bust for this so that you can see what this one looks like hanging. And it's too bad that I don't have one of these put together with all of the loops going in the wrong direction so that you could see the difference. But I promise you there is very much a difference. So this is what this one looks like all put together. It lays perfectly. But had I not put those rings, those little loops going in different directions, it would not have laid nearly as nicely. It would still be a pretty piece, but it's just that one little thing that makes it easier to wear and less frustrating to create. I was looking for more words. Sometimes less is more with words. But yeah, there you go. So it's a beautiful piece. Again, you could use any color of the crystals that were in today's show. You could even pop a beautiful piece of that tiger eye right here, or you could use any of those really amazing acrylic beads that we had at the top of the show. And yes, there you go. It's a fun one, a really fun little piece. Just to show you that your spacer beads don't just have to be spacers. They can be part of the design. They're just as beautiful as everything else. So yes, Nicole says simple yet elegant. I definitely would agree with that. All right, everybody. I just want to give you a very, very special thank you for joining me today, this Friday live. I do want to mention that next week's Master Maker on Friday will be pre-recorded because I will be teaching at the JTV Experience event, and some of you will be hanging out with me in person. But as far as the 4 o'clock show is concerned, it will still be on. It just won't be live, so I won't be able to interact with you guys. But I'll be right back here the week after that, live as usual. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and letting me be a part of your beady journey. I appreciate you letting me hang out with you on this Friday afternoon. I hope that you have an amazing, wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys again next week where we will work even harder to become master makers. Thanks, guys. See you soon.